Welcome to That's What She Said, where we'll spill the tea on women empowerment in the Great Lakes Bay region with your host, Christiana Malacara.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of That's What She Said with me, Christiana Malacara. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you for tuning in to all of these episodes on the many platforms that we have, which would be 100.5 FM WSGW, also on 790 AM on Sundays at 6 p.m. And then here, where you are tuning in live right now over the internets. And that's on Thursdays. We're Thursdays live at 1:30, and then on Spotify 24/7. I have a couple things to say, as per usual, right? First thing is, if you have an empowering woman in your life, or maybe you're that one for someone else, or maybe you're like, hey, I want to learn more about this past guest that you have had, that I've had on the show, let me know. Let me know. Send us that Facebook message. Message us on Instagram. You can even email me. Don't call me. I won't answer. I'm a millennial. I do text only. So if you know, you know. The second item is I was kind of revisiting some old notes. And my notes are not in a journal. They are scattered on sticky notes in the behind the backs of other documents and on old mail envelopes. And then I just kind of put them in a stack nice and neatly. But the thoughts are there, right? And I was going through my notes and I came across something that had said, always set yourself up for success. And I quoted it. And then I put a quote by me. Oh, I don't know when I wrote it, but I thought, okay, I wrote this a while ago. Always set yourself up for success. And that was a pretty interesting thing for me to kind of revisit, because I don't know if we do that. I think sometimes we just go with the flow and wish for the best, but maybe navigating through life with the intention of saying, I'm going to do this because I'm going to succeed, and manifesting that success ahead of time. Maybe that go with the flow will navigate you to success. Wow, that was heavy, right? Okay. So we're going to move on to someone who is creating successful opportunities for other people in the community, the Great Lakes Bay region area, and beyond. And I'm saying beyond 2 weeks in a row, because the people that are here in the Great Lakes Bay region, they affect other people. And then those people affect other people. And so the women that I have sitting next to me, they are that droplet creating that ripple effect for the Great Lakes Bay region and beyond. I feel like this is the time where we have like Buzz Lightyear flying through the screen. So without further ado, this woman that I have next to me, absolutely amazing, because one of our mutual friends have told me so. I actually have not met this guest until about 20 minutes ago. So tune in, because we have Bev Wenzel. Bev Wenzel with me
Bev Wenzel
today. And I am so excited to have you here. One, because we've never met. This is cool. I love making new friends. I feel like this is going to grow, most definitely, because I personally like having people in my corner that empower me and myself, but also have these ideas that just kind of, hey, let's try this. Maybe somebody will benefit. Maybe one person will benefit. And I kind of feel like you're that lady. So, Bev, how would the community know you?
Probably best as the president and CEO of the Rec Center for Youth Development and Discovery U.
Where's that located?
We're based in Midland, but our footprint is in the Great Lakes Bay region. And actually, Discovery U has gone statewide, and we're in a few different states and actually a few different countries we're starting in.
Whoa, okay. That was the beyond part. That escalated quickly. That was the beyond part. Okay. So you're in Midland.
I'm in Midland. Let's go with Midland.
Let's say you're in Midland, but you serve the region.
We serve the region. We work with adults who work with young people, and then we also work directly with young people.
What's the goal?
What is the goal? I think the ultimate goal is to provide the skills and the knowledge, the foundation, so that young people and frankly adults, so that all of us can thrive when we can and struggle well when we need to.
Thrive when we can and what?
Struggle well.
Struggle well.
Struggle well.
What does that mean?
So much you hear about thriving, and thriving is super important. We want to live our best lives, and we want to equip our young people and each other, empower people with this idea and this ability of being able to thrive. And so before I answer struggle, I answer thriving. That's a like ideal state, right? It's, your life's not perfect. It's never going to be perfect, but you kind of have your groove and you're kind of doing it. But too often we try to pretend think about our social medias, like struggle isn't like really real, and we can outrun struggle. We can dodge it. We can avoid it. If we play our cards right, we'll just be in that space of thriving, or at least never struggling, because we've got it all figured out. The reality is we all are going to have struggles. We are going to have struggles on a regular basis throughout our life. And especially when we're working with young people, but helping them to understand that struggle is real, that it happens to all of us. But most importantly, because you can't outrun it, you need to learn how to do it well.
How to struggle well.
How to struggle well. So struggling well means, I guess, first of all, you're not surprised, because we didn't build this illusion or this idea. We didn't create this, that if you're doing life right, you'll never struggle, because that's not true. So if you're going to struggle well, you need to understand and have those abilities and those tools where it's okay to fail, because you're going to fail. You cannot avoid failure. And if you avoid failure, you've missed opportunity. So how do we fail well? How do we expect failure? How do we embrace failure? How do we have a spirit and the tools to be resilient? Because life's going to knock us down, and it's going to happen. It doesn't matter who you are. What matters is that you can get back up, and there's specific tools that can help you develop those resilient skills. And if you're going to struggle well, you really need a growth mindset. You need to know things are going to change, and it's not going to be this way every day.
How do you turn on a growth mindset?
So it's interesting, and that's part of our story, actually.
Do tell, please.
Do tell.
Yes.
I can tell I'm in my tribe right now. I'm with my people. So this is fun. So years ago, I started, it's been over 20 years now. I took over this kind of fledgling, frankly, somewhat failing youth center. Okay. And I actually took it over because my son, who was in late middle school, came home one day. He was using the center, and it was only a couple of years old. And he's like, "Mom, they're going to close it. You need to save it." Well, I didn't know how to save it. I didn't know how to do anything about it. But through a series of events, I ended up coming to the program and took over to lead it. So time goes by. I'm working with middle school students, high school students, don't know anything about it. Know nothing about working with teens other than my own and what I learned on the front line. And honestly, having come out of middle management of like retail and restaurants, I had no idea how to run a nonprofit.
Those are two very different things.
Very different things. You should have seen my face when I found out I was the one who had to raise money. Like there was none. I should have asked. I didn't. So
continue.
Saga continues. So along the way, as I'm working with teens and getting to know teens and getting more involved in the community and sitting on these different committees and just trying to figure out how to make real change, I started noticing some stuff. I started noticing that kids felt like they were losing hope, and they didn't seem as resilient as they used to be. And some stuff just didn't feel like it was coming natural, and things just seemed like they were getting harder. And I'm like, well, there has to be a way to teach this. So I set out to find a way to teach our young people these skills. And I'd go to these conferences and I'd go to these trainings and I'd read these books, and everybody'd be like, "Oh, kids need to be more resilient." I'd be like, "Yes." And then I'd leave and I'd go, "You never told me how to do that."
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay.
Right.
So what did Bev discover?
Well, we discovered that if you want something that isn't there, you should probably make it yourself. So that's where the program, thank you for using the word discover you came about a few years into the program, is we were able to step back and say, what are the skills these kids need? How can we create space, experience, and conversation to bring that to life so these kids can develop these skills before they need them and in an environment that supports it? So it wasn't there, so we wrote it.
So you made the playbook.
We made the playbook. And what was super exciting, and so you think about change and you think about impact and empowering people. Okay, back up a little bit. Never run a nonprofit, could barely raise my own teenagers, single mom, broke, if you want to throw that in there.
Let's throw it in there. Yeah.
Let's throw it in
Let's
there.
throw it in there.
Even more broke when I took the job that had no money, by the way, or benefits or health insurance or anything. But it was a chance. We took it.
Well, this pot got juicy. Okay.
Right?
Keep going.
It's a good story. What was I saying?
You made the playbook.
Okay.
You went in full force into something that was unknown.
Yes.
And you left a career to move into a career that you're like, let's try it.
Sure. So somebody needed to.
Okay, there we go.
Somebody needed to. Was I the right person? I don't know. I still don't know. I honest to goodness don't know if I'm the right person. I don't know who the right person is to be doing this work. What I do know is this work needs to be done. The playbook wasn't there. So through different friends of mine, people are like, would you just go write it? So we did. And what we did is and it's not really magic. What it is it's more it's common sense, right? The original round I made of it was just what I wanted for my kids. It's probably what you would have written. It's pretty much common sense. And it's backed off in a way that kids can just do it and participate it and experience these different concepts collectively and build these skills.
What are some of those skills that they need in their toolbox?
Sure. So just think about 21st century job skills that you might be thinking you need at work, what our kids are going to need. Think about what they're dealing with in school. Think about the world that we're in, and just consider what does it mean to be able to independently think? What does it mean to be able to be resilient? How do you, I use resilience a lot. What is it to have hope? What does hope mean in reality beyond this idea of something fluffy? Hope in and of itself, what does it do to sustain us? How do we work well on a team? How do we work with challenging situations? How do we fail well? How do we develop a growth mindset? We probably have about 50 or 60 skills that we actually teach.
Wow. Okay. I didn't expect you to say that number. And then what age groups are you working with?
So we predominantly work with middle school and high school students. A few years back, we brought in early post-secondary attainment. So when you think about our programs, we work with adults who impact youth as well as youth directly. So if you are an adult who is working with kids, whether you're an educator, an out-of-school time professional, even a parent, a coach, anything like that, and you want to build these skills in the youth you interact with, perhaps just using your own platforms, we have training programs to help equip adults. We have an online platform. We have specific trainings, materials. You can do it very intentionally, and you can kind of jump in on the fringe, but you can start to learn these skills.
Out of all the skills that you have in this playbook, what are some of the ones that you see come to the surface more often? It was like this one across the board, we teach the most, and it's the most, I don't want to say popular, but like you see the most needed.
I think a lot of it's around understanding and leveraging a strength-based approach.
What's that?
Yeah, right. So when you think about how we do so much in this world, and especially our young people, we worry about what they don't have. We worry about, well, you're not doing very well in math. Well, you're really struggling over here in science. Well, you can't spell. Well, you know what? I can't spell. So I really don't need to fail English because I can write. I don't need to know how to spell. But that's kind of a broad statement. So we think about strengths and what people are good at and what they're strong at. And oftentimes we say, that's nice. Now go get better at these things you're not good at. Okay. So what happens is we almost squash what people are good and strong at in order to put pressure on them to develop these areas that they're not as strong. So for example, in young people or in my staff, right? The people that I work with, we want them doing what they're good at and what they're strong at and what lights them up. Because once they understand that, they're their best version of themselves. Now, that doesn't mean we don't worry about this other stuff over here. It doesn't mean we don't work on things that we might have as a deficit. But too often in this world, we have a deficit-based approach. So here's a young person perhaps struggling in science, and they fail a science test, and they got a 40% on it, which means they got 60% wrong. They failed by our standards, okay? But they got 40% right.
Yeah.
So now they come back and work perhaps with an educator or study or whatever it is they might do. And the next test, they get 60% right. Well, that's a 20%, that's a growth, right? 50% growth for my math audience out there, but they still failed. So if we focus on the failure, it's failure on failure. If we focus on growth and strengths, it's a 50% growth.
So taking that theory, how is it that a woman can implement that theory into her life as an adult?
That is such a great question. And women really need to focus on this because you know what? You're amazing. Women have spent so much time trying to be good enough. Friends, you're good enough. When I look at the people around us, the strong women in our community, the women on our team, when I think about how women are always trying to get better, stop and sit in that for a moment and just think about where your strengths are. Strengths of spirit, strengths of communication, of community, of collaboration. A fun way to really start getting into your strengths is there's a lot of research behind what's called character strengths, and you can access that online. Actually, take a free survey.
Character strengths.
Character strengths.
What's the definition of character strengths?
So there's 24 of them, and those are the amazingly good things about people and humanity, and it transcends time, religion, geography, all sorts of fun things. There are things like my character strengths are creativity and humor and perspective, right? So when I started learning about character strengths, I had to stop because my character strengths are not self-regulation, right?
Okay.
So
I'm following you.
You following me?
I am.
It's got like your messy desk concept and
Yes.
sticky notes. We're kin here.
Yes.
So it's budget season, right? And I'm trying to write a budget. And what are budgets? Budgets are kind of boring. And sorry, accountants, not to everybody. But you have to, it's detail oriented. You have to have self-regulation. And I'd be like, oh my gosh, this is hard. And I have to raise money. And this is hard because I have to be regulated. And so it felt like I was defeated. And yet that same job, when I stepped back and said, how do I use creativity, humor, and perspective to do a budget and raise money? Boom, lit me up. I was able to accomplish the same thing, but instead of focusing on what I didn't have and what I wasn't good at and trying to become better at regulating, trust me, at my age, I am not going to self-regulate. Okay.
I hear you. So is this an opportunity? So in this specific situation, is this an opportunity to link yourself with other individuals who have what I want to say lack, who kind of balance each other out? Do you see that being an opportunity?
Oh, absolutely. So one of the fun things is when you start really getting into strengths and us women, when we start settling into our strengths and stop selling ourselves out, folks, we have them. Stop being so modest. You don't even be arrogant, but own it. You're good. You're good at it. So you look at your strengths and you become confident and you settle in those strengths. You can look at the people around you and see each other's strengths. Right? I'm looking around this room right now and I see some self-regulation and I see some ability to keep track and detail oriented and these kind of things. And I see a whole bunch of creativity. So if I'm putting together a team and I have to assign a task or it's in my family, or if it's with my friends, I know who's going to light up over doing the note taking and get excited when I say spreadsheet. I know who's going to break into tears when I say spreadsheet.
People get excited when you say spreadsheet. This is news to me.
Exactly.
Yeah, no.
Right. So if you had when you have a strength-based approach and you know the person who lights up over spreadsheet, you don't go to the person who that brings to tears and force them to become good at spreadsheets. You let them go be amazing and do what they do, and you build that community and team around each other's strengths.
So these characteristics that you have narrowed yourself down to, this is what I excel at, mediocre, and maybe these are not my strengths at all. Over time, have you seen any of those items shift throughout your life?
Absolutely. So if we wanted to really focus on character strengths, which is a fun place to be, actually everyone has all 24 character strengths. Okay. So even my self-regulation, I do have it. It's just my lesser of less strengths. Okay. But it's still there. So oftentimes, yes, they do shift. My top 5 to 7 tend to be my top 5 to 7, and they might move around a little bit. Some people shift drastically depending on circumstances. But this is scientifically based. It's actually the foundation of the science of applied positive psychology. So there's a bunch of research behind this. And you can develop those strengths. And you also, when you ranked your strengths, you almost nailed it, actually. They're called signature strengths, middle strengths, and lesser strengths.
Ooh, okay.
I told you.
I mean, I've never heard of this before, and I'm here on the same page as you. Okay.
Yeah, you're catching on great. So these strengths actually, it's like your signature strengths are like your dominant hand. Go to, use it if it's broke. Your middle strengths are kind of like your non-dominant hand, always working in, concert with the other one. Lesser strengths are kind of like picking up a tool. Like
Okay.
you have to think about it. So they're always there. You always use them. You're always developing them. You might be stronger in one strength in a social situation and stronger in another strength professionally, but they do tend to be kind of who we are. It's what lights us up.
Personally, what are some tools that you have had to pick up recently to succeed?
I am learning every day. Fortunately, I love learning. So we are in transition again right now. I'm in a professional and personal transition. So I'm learning how to make transitions and kind of figure out myself. I've been writing at a different level. So I've actually feel like I've been back to kind of, writing 101 to really polish up on writing skills. Always, to me, it's always learning something new. So our organization's been on a growth trajectory for 20 some years. And when you try to solve big problems, you just keep growing and adapting, and so you're learning constantly. So yeah, what I haven't learned is technology.
I'm chuckling because now I just pictured you saying, just turn it off and turn it back on.
Every time. And sometimes it works.
Yeah, it does. You're right. So let's talk a little bit about who you have surrounded yourself with to be successful.
Amazing people. It really does make a difference. Who you are around makes a lot of difference. It does not mean you can't be around certain people. It does often mean balance, though. So I've had the good fortune of being able to develop our professional team, and am amazed by the level of professionalism and just watching the team continue to develop, new people coming into the right roles.
I think this is really fantastic on how you've just taught our listeners a term that I've never heard of. And we will be right back with Bev Wenzel, and we're going to dive a little bit deeper into the team that is behind her.
That's What She Said with Christiana Malacara is back. Now let's spill the tea.
And we're back to spill the tea all over the place. We are getting all of this great wealth of knowledge by I'm gonna call her my new friend, guys, Bev Wenzel. She is she's pretty cool. She's pretty cool. If you missed the last segment, I'm sitting down. My name is Christiana Malacara, and I'm sitting down with Bev Wenzel. Bev Wenzel is the president and CEO of The Rock and Discover You. So they are based out in Midland, Michigan, and serve the Great Lakes Bay region and beyond. And the really amazing part of having Bev here is that we're getting to know her. I have not met her. And so all of these questions that I'm asking and the conversations that we're having, it's fresh and new. And if you have questions for Bev here in real time on Thursday at 1:30, find us on Facebook. That's What She Said with Christiana Malacara, or WSGW's Facebook page, and let us know. Let us know. Pull them up. We'll pull up those questions. If you are tuning in on the airwaves, it is Sunday within the 6 o'clock hour, when you can catch us each week on Sunday within the 6 o'clock hour, or on Spotify 24/7. And I like to say the Spotify because we're all so busy. We're all so busy with life. Sometimes the only time we can take a moment for ourselves is when we're folding the laundry, or, when we're trying to, fold the laundry. I'm just going to go with fold the laundry because that's what I do. If I'm not doing dishes or working, I'm folding the laundry. Anyway, Bev, thank you for being here again. I want to say that this has definitely been enlightening for myself, and hopefully for our listeners too. So I'm excited to gain their feedback. But let's talk about you. Let's talk about you. So backtracking, I say we, but you took this role and was like, what the heck am I doing? What am I going to do? I don't know. And here we are, fast forward 21 years later, a successful establishment who's, like you said, on the trajectory of growth, and things are moving along very quickly now, it feels. You have found your strengths and the strengths of your team members and created this super force of a team to move these students and adults forward on growing themselves. So what is it that, other than your son saying, "Hey mom, you need to help these people with this organization," what was it that you said, "Yeah, okay, I'll do that"?
I think personally at that time in my life, it does weigh heavily on my son, but more around circumstances. So my son and my daughter and myself had just gone through a divorce, and we were just figuring things out. And my son really used this teen center, and it kind of was his spot, where school, not so much. Home life, got disrupted, things were going on. And I realized what it meant to my son. And I thought, so many young people need this, especially during those adolescent years and those teen years, when kids are kind of, I was just getting a sense of this because I was new to teenage parenting, but understanding how they were leaning more on their friends and they needed to start spreading their wings, but in some kind of a environment where there was still some safety nets. So the Rock mattered to me in that way because of how it mattered to my kids and how I could see it mattering to other kids around us. I think so. That was probably one of the biggest incentives. The other one was probably just, sometimes it helps when you don't know what you don't know and you don't know what you're getting into. And so going forward, someone blindly didn't really hurt the cause either.
So I'm interpreting this as you pulled your safety net to give it to your children.
I would say so. So it was quite comical when I started volunteering just a few months times with the organization, and then one day I get a call from one of the board members, and they're like, "Oh, we're looking for a director," and I'm like, "Oh yeah," and they're like, "Oh, you're gonna apply," and I'm like, well, "Okay." So I kind of did, and it just kind of moved forward in a very unusual fashion. And the next thing I know, I'm walking into this organization and saying, "Who has the keys for it?" And they're like, "I don't know, call somebody and good luck." But what happened is, from the day I walked in the door, realizing the difference it was making for young people, and somehow that resonated with me, probably on a level I had no idea at that time. I wanted to save the center. I had no idea how much it would probably save me, save adults, and literally thousands of kids.
So how did it save you?
Purpose and motivation is a very strong thing. And prior to that time, my purpose, was my kids, and again, surviving kind of a divorce and trying to hold things together, but not really finding where my place was in the world, knowing I wanted to help people and make a difference, but not really ever being empowered or put in a position where I could. So that organization gave me that opportunity to find out what my place in the world was supposed to be, and to help me to focus that energy on a stage, on a real platform where a difference could be made in the lives of other people.
But let's ask how. I'm thinking of how to phrase this. How is it that you have fulfilled your dreams and your ambitions if your job wasn't there?
That's interesting, because I think I would have found a way, because even prior to that, there were places and points in the world where I was kind of achieving those dreams. I think that sometimes opportunity can shape those dreams.
Okay.
It would have looked different. I am grateful it looked this way.
I am too. Yeah, I am too. It sounds like, and here I am saying it, that you planted a seed, and it is 21 years later, and now it's thriving. You're making me use this word, thriving. Yeah.
See, it's a good word.
It's a good word. I'm going to start using it. We need to write that down, Jonathan. So, but let's say navigating through these 20 years, how have you seen yourself grow personally?
Oh, tremendously. So it's super funny when I took the job. So if anyone's wondering if you can do whatever it is, if you can do it, you can do it. I took this job. I had no idea how to raise money. I had no idea how to run a nonprofit. I could not speak publicly. And then I found out I had to do that all the time. I used to get sick. I would get physically sick for days.
No.
Days. And to go talk to 10 people. Now I speak in front of hundreds, thousands. I mean, and there's a lot of reasons behind that. And we could have another whole conversation around how you can take one win, and you find a way to attach to that one win, and you build on that win. And then you actually can build inside yourself this ability to grow. But
how have you done that with yourself?
Well, one of it was, there were several days, and I can even picture myself standing in front of the bathroom mirror, giving myself a very stern look and saying, "Look, self, either you figure out how to do this, or you get out of the way so someone else can do it."
Oh, wow. Okay. So you had to, okay. I'm trying to picture myself doing this. You have to do it yourself, or move out of the way so someone else can do this.
Yeah.
And so you're giving yourself the option of, are we going to take option A or option B? Because you need to move forward or move out of the way. So
Yeah.
what did you choose?
Well, I'm still here, my friend.
Yay!
So, it's interesting because, and I've had that conversation even with up and coming leaders. And as I'm developing leaders in the organization and in other organizations, and they'll be like, oh, it's so hard for me to hold my staff accountable, or I have to terminate somebody and it's making me sick and I don't want to do it. And it's very comfortable for me to look them in the eyes now and say, do you care about the organization or your job or your role? Yes. Occasionally it may be a no, but did you accept this job?
Yes.
Do you understand
Your
what you did?
responsibilities? Yes.
Yeah. And then it's like, you either need to do it or get out of the way.
So what kind of mindset do you have when you're looking in the mirror and saying, do it or move someone else so someone else can do it? What kind of mindset do we have?
For me and the organization of The Rock, so I have my son and my daughter, and The Rock became kind of my third kid, and Discover You kind of my fourth. And it was in that love for the organization and the mission and the next generation that said, and again, I can remember the day early on where I'm standing in this dilapidated old building that's falling around me that was the home of The Rock originally, and saying, this cannot fail on my watch. If what I'm doing matters, if what you're doing matters, then doing it well matters. And I cared enough about that organization and that mission that if I had no problem saying, if I can't do it, I need to let someone else do it.
Because you want the end result to succeed no matter what.
No matter what. And, sometimes it's not about us. Sometimes we do have to get out of the way. We have to get out of our own way. We have to make hard decisions. But when you think about what the ultimate goal is, right? Is it a hard decision? Is it really that hard to tell somebody you love that they could make choices that would better serve them if ultimately all you want is their success? Right?
So kind of back to what I said in the beginning is setting yourself up for success. And how important is that to say, I'm going to do this one thing and succeed. But we're here kind of countering this now and saying, I want this thing to succeed. Am I part of the success?
Yeah, that's a really big girl question, isn't it?
That's why I'm on. That's what she said, Bev. Trying to get to the bottom of these things.
But they're not contradicting each other, because you know what? If I was not the person to make the organization succeed, I would not have found success there. If success of the organization requires a successful leader, my success would be somewhere else. Right? Like, you can part ways with somebody. I've even heard someone say this one time about the employees. It's like, I don't want to wish you bad. I want you to thrive, but you need to go thrive somewhere else.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because not everything's the right fit. And sometimes we commit to, sometimes we define success and we paint a box for ourselves. But just because this one thing, this one initial idea of success that you had isn't the right success for you, it doesn't mean you aren't succeeding. It means you're reevaluating.
As a mother and as a boss babe, do you consider yourself successful?
Do I consider myself successful? That's an interesting question. I guess I don't know how to answer that. I feel confident and good that my kids are actually in their late 30s and they're doing well. And I just have to make a plug for this because I'm on air. And I became a grandma twice this year.
Woo!
So
Congratulations,
first time ever.
Grandma.
Thank you. I got a Mel who's 12 and a Gloria who's 6 months, both in the same year.
Bonus.
So, I feel like success is an interesting word. So we talk a lot about young people being successful, but we try really hard not to define success for them because it's different for everybody. So am I successful? Sure. Am I successful by someone else's standards? I don't know. I think more than
Does their standards matter to you?
No. Sorry.
Why?
So no.
Yeah. Don't. I'd never apologize.
Do they? Not necessarily, because no, they don't. Because everybody's writing their own story. And if you are not happy or content or find joy in your story, then change it.
How do you do that?
I think it's a lot about choice. It's a lot about realizing how much choice we actually have. And I'm not simplifying this or oversimplifying this, or this is not coming from the mouth of somebody who has handed everything. Quite the opposite. I mean, my own father didn't even have an 8th grade education. My children are first generation college graduates. I worked my way to everything. So, and I have my kids. And so I'm not saying, oh, just wish it and good things happen. I do believe in positive emotions. I do believe in having a positive approach to life. However, if choice is a thing, and mindset is a thing. Your mindset is your whole world. If your mindset is struggling and toxic, you need to consider a new mindset. It's
What are some good ways to shift your mindset? I mean, I many moons ago, I used to give speeches on mindset and say, this is going to create success for you. This is going to create happiness for you. But if you're in a rut and you're thinking, this isn't happening the way it's supposed to go, how do you shift that?
Well, for one thing, excuse me, nothing ever happens the way it's supposed to go. So I think it's flexibility in the path. One thing we do with our young people and we do with adults is we kind of say, oh, okay, so something's happened, and that is the concrete thing that doesn't change. So let's say we applied for funding and we didn't get the funding. That happened. That's not going to change. When you come to mindset and you start getting into beliefs and how you're going to look at it, that's where the big shift lies in, and where we have choice. So you can say, you can have a fixed mindset that says that organization's bad and nothing's ever going to change and I'm not going to get funding. And you can think all these fixed things like basically nothing's going to change. Or you can say, did not get funding yet. Right? That's a healthy word to add. So I don't do math yet, because that means you're learning. You can look at that and have a mindset of, if I believe things can change, I will try harder. I will try again. I will work at it. I think it's in the work where we decide kind of our mindset. If we believe things can't change and we walk away, then guess what? You're right. They cannot change. And when you walk away, they will be the same. Mm-hmm. If you believe things can change and you're willing to do the work, then things will change by nature of the fact you did the work.
What were some of those yets for you in your life?
So I can't public speak yet.
You're doing great.
There's so many things that I would say at the time I could not do, but it's comical because that's what life's all about, is learning how to do. Yeah. My 12-year-old great niece told me that, I can't golf. I can't do this. I can't do that. I said, my goodness, girl, you're 12 years old. You
can't do it yet.
You have no idea what you can do. You haven't even tried. But I think it's also embracing that, we have to fall in love with failing. And honestly, if you think you're going to get from point A to point B without failing, you're missing half the fun, for one thing.
Wait. You're missing half the fun from failing?
Yeah.
How?
Well, failing is part of the adventure. Failing is where we learn. Failing is the ability to say, it's a creative stage, right? It's this idea that I can try this, and by giving myself the opportunity to fail, I give myself the opportunity to grow. If I have to do it right, my world just got very, very tiny, because I can tell you all the things I cannot do unless I'm willing to fall and fail when I do them. Once I become willing to laugh at myself, laugh with myself, allow myself that, pick myself back up, and not be devastated by these failures. Teaching our kids how to fail and how to have a growth mindset is critical for them to be successful.
Can you share a time with our listeners of when maybe you failed and learned from that lesson?
I'm not struggling to think of something. I'm struggling to narrow it down.
I love that for you, though. That's great.
We fail every day. We literally fail every day. We write content that has to be rewritten. We apply for funds that we get denied. It's in that willingness to take a chance that our worlds open up. So yeah, I mean, I could probably keep a diary on failure, but most of the time it'd probably be comical. Sometimes it's tragic, but it's built into the plan. Build it into the plan.
So this idea of finding your strengths, and then we're over here talking about your characteristics and breaking those down into 3 sections. Out of those tools, how have you handed those over to your children and your family?
Well, I believe it becomes part of the language, which is why I think it's so important that adults understand and spend time learning the language. So there are skills that can be taught explicitly and then implicitly. So I can sit down and do a lesson with you and teach you about character strengths. Or we can go out and hang out and I can say to you, wow, Christiana, I know one of your strengths is creativity. And I also, you're high in, like I would notice you doing them and just applaud you in them because of the fact that it's going to light you up, because that's where you're good and that's where you feel good, right? When you start thinking about a strength language and you start empowering others around you to really focus on those strengths, then what you're doing is helping them to see their own potential. So just by calling them out.
Do you think it's okay to call someone out on a characteristic trait that's not something that they're good at?
Well, so, that's another whole conversation around honesty and truth and when it needs to be said and how it needs to be delivered. One of the reasons I like a strength-based language is because I can have a conversation with you or a young person that perhaps is, take a young person who's perhaps being very like kind of bossy and pushy. And that tends to be a negative trait for young people. And what do adults do? They say, knock it off. Don't be like that. Stop being so bossy. So that's calling out a negative trait, right? However, we need good leaders, right?
Correct.
We really need good leaders. So instead of me saying, knock it off, stop being so bossy, I could look at them and say, you know what? You just might be overusing your strength of leadership a little bit.
Oh,
right.
I like how that table turned.
Now what I'm doing is I'm saying, I recognize you're a leader. And remember, we said there's signature strengths. They don't always come out pretty. Sometimes they come out bossy or sarcastic or talk to me about humor sometime. They can come out messy, right? So, but then I could say, what if you considered using a little bit more of your strength of fairness that's a little bit further down your list, or maybe humility, and kind of balance that a little bit, maybe teamwork, and think about how your other people are perceiving that. If you balance that strong leadership with a little bit of fairness, you might have better results of what you're looking for.
What is something that you do in your life to create balance between work and home?
Is my husband listening?
I don't know. Does he have a Facebook account?
No.
Okay.
I think I have a lot of fun. We love adventures. My husband is my adventure buddy. We boat. We spend a lot of time in the warm states, and we'll spend just about every night watching the sunset off the Gulf of Mexico. We just do. I believe the balance comes from, yes, you can work hard and we should work hard and we should have purpose and feel good about our work. We spend a lot of time working.
So I'm going to ask you one more question.
Okay.
What is a piece of advice that you would pass along to a listener about empowerment?
Well, for women, I think it's really important that you find your voice, that you learn to speak up and what you need to say, and you can do it with a degree of confidence and being grounded in yourself.
Being grounded in yourself with confidence.
With confidence, and don't wait until you're 20, 30, 40 years from now to look back and go, I wish I'd understood then what I have.
That's a really great piece of advice. Thank you, Bev Wenzel. I appreciate you being here. And that's what she said.